Welcome back to episode 149 of the Disorganized Podcast. My name is Alex. I'm joined as always by Adam.
Hello.
And Cam.
Hello.
And we're a group of Ottawa-based players that play just about anything and everything we can qualify for. We talk about decks, tournament stories, just about anything to help you and ourselves get better at Magic.
Oh, most certainly.
There are some stories we'll be talking about today.
Yeah,
some old fairy tales.
We're tackling our top 10 from Throne of Eldraine this week.
Yeah, classic top 10 bangers.
Yeah, got a lot of cards to talk about. I think this top 10 took us longer to put together than any other top 10 before.
Because this card sucks, or this set sucks. I
All
told
the cards
you.
are weak.
Yeah. No, that's not actually it. It's hard to evaluate a lot of these cards, I think.
Yeah, we had a lot of disagreements on some cards.
There's even a bet. You'll have to listen to the pre-show to hear it, but
Where could I hear the pre-show?
Well, if you head on over to patreon.com/DWC Podcast and become a patron of our podcast, you too could get access to not only the DWC Discord, but also the unedited pre-show that we record before every episode.
yeah, live and uncut.
Patron-only exclusive.
How honest of you, Alex, to plug the pre-show in which people will listen and then realize how badly you're going to embarrass yourself.
And also, before we jump in, if you want to pre-order any of these sweet new cards from Throne of Eldraine, you can head right over to wizardtower.com. Great sponsor of this podcast. Pre-release for Throne of Eldraine this weekend.
Yeah, they also have free shipping on singles over $15 in Canada, so be sure to check them out.
wizardtower.com. All right, let's get into it.
Yeah, well, okay, before we start the top 10, though, we should just talk about the dead ringers. Like the obvious, you know what I mean? Let's just get them out of the way. Let's just get the dead ringers out of here. Like, first things first, Questing Beast probably going to see play. You know what I'm saying?
Questing Beast not on our list because that card's busted. Everyone knows it's busted. People have been talking about for weeks how busted this card is. We're not going to talk about it anymore.
It's got a lot of words on it, and none of them are bad in any way.
Yeah, remember when I first read it a few weeks ago on the podcast when I actually looked at spoilers? I was like, where's the downside? I kept rereading it.
Yeah, there's none.
No, there's no downside. Also, we're not going to talk about the land cycle, which are
The castles,
Are
those
just-
cards,
foolishly good.
probably
Yes.
the best cards in the set.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, not close.
I think so. I
I've
think,
also talked a lot about Rankle. He's great.
yeah. Or I don't think Clackbridge Troll is on our list.
Yeah,
You
that
know?
card just
Uh,
very, very good.
I think that card's probably sees play, but it's close. Maybe it's not a dead ringer. Actually, I'll back up on that one. It's not a dead ringer. So
I
what
think
else
those
do we
are
have?
those are the obvious ones.
Yeah, there's a few other I think cards like Worthy Knight potentially see a lot of play just because the way the Knights line up with Fervent what's Fervent Champion, is that what it's called? The 1 mana haste first strike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Red rare.
Yeah.
Cards like that I think are just like dead ringers. Like
Garrick, Cursed Huntsman,
dead ringer.
Dead Ringer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Royal Scions probably. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There are we're gonna spoiler. There are some dead ringers on our list. So, but we're gonna talk about it anyway because we think they have such a profound impact on the format. But we'll let Cam start this one off, I guess, for our top 10.
All right, so coming in at number 10, unobvious, dead ringer. No one thinks this card is bad. This one, just insane. Every savvy metagamer will know to play Savvy Hunter. This card costs 3 mana, 1 black-green. It's a 3/3 human warrior. And the text is, whenever Savvy Hunter attacks or blocks, create a food token. And its other text is that you can sacrifice 2 foods to draw a card.
All right, so Cam had to say that he was going to give me $20 by the time next set comes out.
I'm going to win
this
$20.
card on the set.
No, this card's insane. Well, it's okay.
Alex thinks this card sucks.
I think this card is not standard playable.
Insane is very strong, but I think it is I think it is standard playable, which puts it way better than Alex thinks it is.
Card's nuts and limited, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
I will play this card every time in limited.
Oh, this card's bonkers and limited.
It's very, very good in limited.
Standard though, no way.
I mean, I think it has a chance in standard. It's number 10 on our list. It's interesting. It's okay. So the reason I think this card is good is that there are things in Magic which I just inherently recognize are strong. Mana mechanics and converting resources. This card converts resources. If you have any other thing in your deck that sort of incidentally makes foods in any way, or even by its first line of text, this thing, if you are able to get into a position where you can attack with it multiple times, maybe you have a removal spell or maybe your opponent's stumbling, it can convert these secondary resources into a primary resource of cards and just bury your opponent. And I think that's very powerful.
Imagine it was just sacrifice a food, draw a card. Then I'd be listening.
Yes.
Then I'd
Then it would be
probably
insane.
number 2 or
It'd
1
have to
on
be a
our
mythic.
list. Well, I don't think they'd print it.
Right. It would
Yeah.
just be too much.
I'm just I'm not convinced you know how to evaluate three drops in standard, because I remember a time when Teamer Energy was in standard and you told me that Rogue Refiner needed to be cut from that deck.
No, we tried to cut it. We experimented to see.
I remember
We
you
explored
playing
the possibility.
Canadian Nationals with not 4 copies in your deck.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want to see what it's like.
That card, banned in standard.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, this card sucks.
Do you know why that
Savvy
card was
Hunter,
good?
Unplayable.
Do you know why it ended up banned?
Because it was busted.
It was a 3-drop that made secondary resources and drew cards.
Yeah, but it drew cards without any other
That is true.
required resource.
Yeah, so it is definitely better than
All
this.
I had to do was
no,
cast
I'm aware that it's better than Savvy Hunter,
Mm.
but I think Savvy Hunter is maybe a fixed version.
All right, yeah, fair enough. Let it be known, though.
But
that-
fixed
like, it's
versions
not
of
gonna-
broken cards aren't
It's
good.
not
Let
going to
it
get
be-
banned, but
let-
like outside of what Savvy Hunter says it does, it also just gives you like, it has to give you like an unlosable red matchup, right?
yeah, it's pretty good. But let it be known that this should have been Golden Egg.
Yeah, Golden Egg could have also been number
Let
10.
it-
Golden
let
Egg, Dead Ringer.
Let it be known that I pushed for Golden Egg to be number 10. I think that card's nuts. Well, Astrolabe doesn't gain you life. I think that's everything else Astrolabe does. What do you want? Whack, I'm serious. What more do you want? What can't the Golden Egg do?
Yeah, no, Egg is nuts. I wouldn't be surprised if Egg.
You think I'm not playing 5-color Golden Egg Kenrith? You're out your mind. And Kenrith breaks the Golden Egg mirror. I get to kill your egg.
You can sack the Egg to Savvy Hunter to draw cards.
Yeah. Playing Kenrith Savvy Hunter Golden Egg. All right, okay.
All right, moving up to number 9.
I was adamant this card be on the list.
It is certainly an Adam card.
Yeah, Midnight Clock. Yeah, I was big on this card. Yeah, 1 blue, 2 colorless. It's an artifact. You can tap it to add a blue, and you can pay 3 to put an hour counter on Midnight Clock. Also, at the beginning of each upkeep, put an hour counter on Midnight Clock. When it reaches the 12th hour, of course, you shuffle your hand and graveyard into your library and draw 7. Then you exile Midnight Clock. So I think this card is super interesting, and that's also generally a requirement to be on our top 10 as well. It's usually a mix of these like spike cards, but also these, I don't know, Timmy and other cards, whatever, like a mix of cards that have various build potentials. And I think Midnight Clock has a lot of experimental possibilities, but I also think it makes up for the downside of ramp, which is you play this mana rock, and that costs you cards. And here we get to just time twister and make up for them. I also think it fits with Tamiyo and Standard, where you mill yourself and you're worried perhaps about, going through everything in your deck. In the sort of ramp strategies that are employing mass manipulation, you get to rebuy all these really powerful, impactful spells with Midnight Clock, and you can sort of ramp out how fast it goes up. I mean, realize it's 6 turns, but when you play your mana rock on turn 3, you're presumably casting other things along the way, and then you can speed it up when you need to. I think Midnight Clock on turn 3 is a really, really, really powerful option.
Yeah, you don't want it to pop too early because you're using it for mana in those intermediary turns.
Yeah, exactly. I think this card does a lot. And with cards like Circuitous Route and various other ramp strategies, I think this card could do a lot of damage in Standard. I think it's actually like a really, really powerful card. I think it pairs well with some of the other Artifacts Matters cards that are just trying to dump their hand. If you're trying to get your hand into the graveyard, just dump everything quickly. I think this card allows you to do that and then rewards you for doing so. I don't know. I just think this card has a lot of options.
Yeah,
Control decks could play it.
I like it. I think it's really interesting. I'm just not sure how it's going to line up in the small set standard, just because I think cards like Oko and cards like Teferi are just make this card look embarrassing.
Yeah, Oko and Teferi are really rough against it.
And like I think there's going to be a lot of aggro decks running around at the start, and this card just like
ramp decks, like,
yeah,
obviously it depends on
yeah,
how
but
they're built. But
I do think it's a super cool card.
it's a super interesting card. The fact though that like if Teferi bounces your mana rock, it's also not the end of the world. Like,
yeah, I just like don't want to have invested 9 mana into this
and then get
picking
it
up
bounced.
and then
Yeah.
it just get bounced.
Oko is an issue, but I think Oko decks might end up playing this too. Like, it just depends.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I just think it's a super interesting card. Also combos hilariously with Niv Mizzet and like various other things.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Card is super interesting. But yeah, I mean, it might be limited by the format it ends up in. It just depends how much Teferi actually sees play. We might end up in a world where Teferi isn't the most dominant thing, right?
Yeah.
It's rotation.
say-
Anything could happen.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. For
But
sure.
yeah, I think it's just a sweet card. I'm going to try and make decks with it and then just get Oko and be pissed. But, the card's
All right.
sweet.
Midnight Clock does play pretty well with this next card, too.
Yeah, moving up to number 7, Dance of the Manse. It's blue-white X, sorcery. Return up to X target artifact and or non-aura enchantment cards, each with converted mana cost X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. If X is 6 or more, those permanents are 4/4 creatures in addition to their other types. This is a pretty sweet build around and crazy game-ending card.
I think this card's like insane. I said this on the pre-show. I think this is one of the cards that is so incredibly interesting and also so incredibly powerful. You know, you play Pinocchio on turn 1 and then you can get it back and you buy a lot of scry, you know.
Yeah, like 4 mana, get back. So
But you exile it is the downside. But
Yeah.
If your turn 4 is get back 2 mana things, like that's fine for 4 mana.
yeah, you get back your golden egg, draw a card. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Bridging into like when you can cast the extra copies of this for a lot more.
Yeah, I think it has a decent cast of support cards that are all coming out in this set.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, you ever cast it for X equals 6, I mean, you're winning immediately,
Oh, yeah.
which is kind of what you want out of your payoff.
I mean, 8 mana, yeah, like we said, 8 mana makes 6 4/4s is just nuts. Like, that's absurd.
Yeah, and I imagine if you're playing a expensive game-ending card like this, you're probably playing artifacts that can ramp you, like one we just talked about, which you want to be playing anyway because they're required to have the max payoff of this
Yeah, I mean,
effect.
the only other cards you're not playing are enablers, maybe Emery and Teferi, to make sure you don't get it countered. You're good to go.
Yeah.
All right, question. What is Mance?
I don't know. Raider?
Because from the art, it looks like this is supposed to be like the animated.
That guy that Stannis kills. This is his final hurrah.
Spoilers, dude.
But like the
Whatever. it's too late for you,
in the art, it's like the animated furniture from Beauty and the Beast. So is Mance like a different word for mansion?
I don't know. Man's probably means something that I just don't know.
It's probably some type of house.
You should know, Dr. Ben.
I don't know every word.
PhD in English doesn't mean you know every word.
The house occupied by a minister of a Presbyterian church. Informal, a person's house or home. There you go. You figured it out.
Yeah, look.
Dance
Oh,
of the
wow.
House.
All right, I hand over my degree to you, Dr. Ruth.
So
My deductive skills are nuts.
can we just call this card House Party?
Ooh, that's really good.
That is pretty good.
Yeah, well, the deck that it's in can be called House Party.
Nice.
Yeah. All right, sold. Remember when decks used to have cool names like that?
Yeah, and then they just switched it to like
Bug midrange.
Saltai card.
All right, we cheated for our next one on the list. What number is this?
This would be
6.
Yeah, we cheated and put 5 cards on it.
Yeah, so this is our cycle. This is the legendary artifact cycle, the strongest of which we think is the Great Henge. But there's one in each color of just these big, swingy legendary artifacts with mana mechanics on them, some cost reduction effects. So, for instance, the Great Henge is a 9 mana legendary artifact, 7 and 2 green, but it costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. Once it's on the battlefield, you can tap it to add 2 green mana, and you gain 2 life. And then as a static ability, whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on it and draw a card. So being forced to draw a card is very, very rarely a downside. So this card is very good. Helps you cast the creatures that then draw you cards that then are probably more creatures that you'll continue to cast to draw more cards. The literal only downside is that it's not good at multiples.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's just reminds me of similar sort of mono green cards that snowball off of casting creatures like Lifecraft just Bestiary, but better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this card's super powerful. Also, if you're in the MTG finance realm, get foil copies of this card.
What is that?
Whoa, this is like a Dream Commander green elves, like dumb creature deck, right? For Commander players. This thing's like god tier, legendary. It's perfect,
It's the greatest henge for them.
Yeah.
So this card just nuts. But other artifacts appearing in this cycle, some sort of maybe more interesting ones that require build around. Embercleave is the red one. So they all cost, well, no, they don't all cost. So Embercleave costs 4 red. It has flash. It is discounted by 1 for each attacking creature you control. And when it enters the battlefield, you can equip it to a creature. And then that creature gets +1/+1 and double strike and trample. So it's sort of a artifact equipment version of something like Temur Battle Rage or similar sort of combat tricks. So that's really interesting because it's a combat trick that obviously you can surprise your opponent with in combat. And then if they're not dead, you can just start equipping it to other things for the rest of the game.
Yeah, I just think this card's super interesting and that you could just go one drop, and then on turn 3 just equip it. It's pretty powerful, man. Because then it's just on the board and being a problem for the rest of the game. Again, downside being that legendary. Same thing goes for basically all of them. Circle of Loyalty, right? The white one is 6 mana, costs 1 less to play for each knight you control. Creatures you control get +1/+1. Whenever you cast a legendary spell, create a 2/2 knight, and then you can tap it, pay for it, make a 2/2 knight. I think it's so interesting. Like I can't tell if these cards are good because it's just going to depend on the deck building. It's impossible to say without actually testing them because, like, at face value, this card just looks worse to me. Looks worse than Immortal Sun to me, and that card didn't see play. Well, a little, but you know what I mean. Like, it's just less powerful in a lot of ways than Immortal Sun.
Yeah, but
and also I'm really hesitant about tribal being good and relying on something like this
for sure. Comparing to Immortal Sun, I'm not sure is really fair because I don't think this card's going to cost 6 mana the majority of the time, right?
I mean, if you can get it out for 4, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
But the problem is I don't think the static ability of whenever you cast a legendary spell, create a 2/2 white knight is that relevant.
Yeah, that one's not amazing. But the fact that so the weakness of tribal strategies is that they get wrathed and run out of cards because they aren't playing that much card advantage. That something like this sort of contributes to rebuilding after Wrath, that it is a mana sink for late game. Like it's basically a flipped Legion's Landing that's once it's on the board.
Yeah, because I mean, like you're playing
It's
this
close.
in a Knights deck, but I can't really think of many legendary Knights off the top of my head that are actually playable.
Yeah, that too.
So that line of text almost might as well just not exist on it. But I mean, if you ever cast this card for 2 mana, like
you probably already won the game,
Yeah.
though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, true.
I don't know. It's like, it's tough. It just depends on what the meta shapes out to be, right? Like, all these cards actually sort of are just super meta-dependent cards because it feels like mirror breakers almost. Like Circle of Loyalty feels like a mirror breaker.
I could see it being very similar to kind of the role Benelish Marshall played. Like you play a 1-drop and then like maybe 2 1-drops or something. This costs 3, sort of pumps your team in
Yeah, there are some 1 mana 2/1 knights, right? So you can have some nut draws in red-white knights where you have fervent champion plus the white one, the Savannah Lion knight that pumps other knights as well.
Yeah.
And you can go 1-drop circle, which is
same with black-white with Knight of the Ep and Legion and the white 1-drop too.
Yeah, true.
So like there's roads to it.
Yeah, and the Tri-Land for Knights, which isn't on it, but is a dead ringer, obviously. I've going to see a lot of play.
Yeah, Tournament Grounds is very powerful. Yeah. But the other artifacts in this cycle, the Magic Mirror costs 6 and 3 blue. Costs 1 less to cast for each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard. It says you have no maximum hand size at the beginning of your upkeep. You put a knowledge counter on it, and then you draw a card for each knowledge counter. So
this is just a one of in every single spells deck, though, right? You got to roll the die.
Yeah, you got to roll the die and like
see if you land it.
Yeah,
on time. Like if you're playing, I don't know, like Phoenix, Drakes. You're just out there casting your Drakes and playing ops. You just play this card as a one of, right? Because maybe you hit it and then it just snowballs out of the game.
Yeah,
But you can only play one, I think, ever of this card, and so it's. I think this card at most ever sees as a fun of.
I can definitely see it doing that. Having no immediate impact is kind of crappy, but I mean, if you cast it for 3 mana, I don't think you care.
Right, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Late game is a control deck. I think you just, okay, I'll just play this for 2 or 3 or 4 mana maybe.
Yeah, and it's gonna within a couple turns, you're just never losing.
I would be hesitant to cast this out of a control deck that didn't have very quick finishers. Otherwise, you'll just deck yourself.
Yeah, you
This
deck
ramps up
yourself.
very quickly.
That's true. Actually, that is a really real concern. Whereas for 3 blue, Drakes being able to play it is actually super interesting, though.
Yeah.
3 blue, Drakes just plays this in grindy games or as a one of. I think it's interesting. I think otherwise it doesn't see any play though.
Yeah, out of a control deck, because so you play this and then you draw 1, you don't find a finisher. You draw 2, you don't find a finisher. You draw 3, maybe you do, but your finisher needs a couple turns to connect, and then you're drawing 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, it
And
might
you
just
draw
kill
other
you.
cards. You might just die.
Yeah,
You'll probably kill him.
I mean, maybe.
it depends what the finishers are.
Yeah. Yeah, finally, we've got the Cauldron of Eternity. It's 10 generic and 2 black. Legendary artifact. The spell costs 2 less to cast for each creature card in your graveyard. Whenever a creature you control dies, put it on the bottom of its owner's library. You can play two in a black, tap it, pay 2 life, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield to activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery.
This card needs a lot of help.
Yeah, it's like a weird reanimator card that stops you from continuing to reanimate if things go wrong.
It's super interesting,
Yeah.
but it's a heavy build around cost.
Yeah, and I mean, like, we've had an effect like this before. Whip of Erebos, that card was busted. This card, obviously, its mana cost is a lot higher, but it could be lower. I mean, I'm sure if you're dedicating your deck to be a reanimator deck, you're going to be casting this for 2 mana a lot of the time. Have only costing 3 to reanimate something is
Pretty insane.
yeah.
It is very strong.
And the fact that the Grixis decks have both the Lich, Tonebound Lich, to discard extra copies or creatures, plus now there's the instant speed Tormenting Voice.
Yeah.
Grixis colors, pitching Dracuseth and then playing it back is actually like a lot easier. I don't know. There's like
And I mean, we have a card in this set that allows you to cast artifacts from your graveyard. So if you mill this over,
yeah, you can
you
play
can still
that.
cast it.
Yeah, of course. So
So-
there's actually a lot of enablers for this card in really clunky ways, though. So I'm a little nervous about that. You know, about
Yeah.
playing Grixis clunky stuff and just getting steamrolled by somebody playing, I don't know, either Mono Red or Knights. You know what I mean? But it's definitely interesting. It's gonna, you know, be something that people are brewing with, though, for sure. I think actually almost all of these artifacts that we have as number 6 are going to see a lot of brew speculation about what their limits are.
Yeah. I think out of all 5 of them, the Great Henge is probably the best. I think it's by a lot and will most likely see the most play. All of them, though, are like really interesting in their own way and super cool cards for sure.
Especially because, you know, a single Nissa and then it makes 2 lands and then you cast Great Henge for 3.
Yeah.
You know, then all of a sudden you don't lose to aggro anymore. You know, you start drawing cards.
It doesn't count total power. It's greatest power.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's greatest power.
It's greatest
Yeah.
power.
But
like-
well, I mean, if you have a Nissa, you can just cast it the next turn.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Because
If
your
you
Nissa lived.
like,
Right, yeah.
I'm sure decks that are playing something like Rotting Regisaur also makes this card 2 mana on its own.
Oh, that's insane.
That's actually nuts.
You just draw extra cards that the Rotting Regisaur makes you discard
Yeah,
to like
so
compensate.
yeah, exactly.
Wow.
It was kind of the first card I thought about when I saw this one.
That is actually super
That's
interesting.
really smart.
Yeah. So like,
That is a big brain thought right there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That's actually
Yeah,
nuts.
I-
Like
yeah.
Jund Dino, like
you just play like black green,
yeah.
like kind of black
Just
green
stuff,
aggro-ish
black
type
green.
stuff.
You telling me I'm not going to Ember Cleave my Rotting Regisaur?
But yeah, that's
Yeah.
sweet.
Also, so this next card is number 6. I can't count. Can't read, can't count.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Disorganized
all those
Wizards Club.
all those things are, you know, that's just how it goes.
You're
That's just life.
expecting a lot of me.
I mean, look at the name of our show. What
Wow,
do
we'll
you
skip. We'll skip
right.
7 and have 2 6s.
Real number 6, Murderous Rider. It's a 3 mana zombie knight, 2/3 lifelink, costs 1 and double black. When Murderous Rider dies, put it on the bottom of its owner's library. And it has an adventure for the same mana cost, Swift End, instant, destroy target creature or planeswalker, you lose 2 life. This
Hero's
card-
Downfall is back, baby.
Yeah. This card's going to see a crap ton of standard play. It's going to be everywhere.
So there's a new fetch land too, which is a Dead Ringer.
Yep.
So control decks can just keep shuffling the ones that they put on the
Yeah.
bottom and just keep drawing Heroes Downfalls.
Yeah, so obviously this
In
line of
grindy
text to put it on the bottom of its owner's library when it dies is a safety measure to keep it from being unbelievably broken in standard. But yeah, I mean, Hero's Downfall saw immense amounts of play in standard. This card, better than Hero's Downfall?
I think
No.
that will depend on the format and how it plays out.
Yeah, it's hard to say because the life loss might matter a lot.
Yeah.
It could end up mattering a ton in deck building constrictions that people have. Like
If
a
the-
lot.
It depends how impactful the life loss is. If the life loss doesn't matter that much, then yes, better than Hero's Downfall. But
Yeah.
it is a real cost.
But this card is just nuts. Like actually just so good. Card's incredible. This is actually a Dead Ringer, jokes aside.
Yeah.
This is a full-blown Dead Ringer. This card's seeing tons of standard play. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Yeah,
This is
I
a
mean,
staple.
we had to put some of the Dead Ringers on the list.
Yeah,
though.
this card is a staple though. Like
Yeah.
it's a staple of standard for the next 2 years. You know what I mean? So
100%.
get your copies if they're cheap now, or start trading for them. You know, get them while they're hot because it's gonna stay hot. I just think it's really interesting that the spell gets to shuffle back in theoretically, right?
Yeah.
so that your deck has more answers to planeswalkers than it appears.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's super powerful. In games that go long and grindy, that matters a lot. That you still have 4 Heroes Downfalls in your deck.
Yeah.
That's
Not only like the implications of having a card like this in your deck, like if you're playing some kind of black reanimation deck and you mill this card over and then you play something like Blood for Bones, you just get to pick it back up and then you have access to a Hero's Downfall.
That's what I mean. There's
Like,
a lot of dangerous implications with this card. Like, it's a really, really powerful card. It might actually be one of the most powerful cards in the set.
Mm-hmm.
It might be the most, because just being able to always have removal in your deck and not worry about it and eventually reach a point where you just keep shuffling in or you're just gaining life and attacking, either one is super interesting. I don't know. The card's wild.
Yeah, I'm curious to see like what sort of deck this ends up in that mitigates or maybe even takes advantage of the supposed downside the most. Because I'm thinking, like, my first thought is Tameo, right? Like, as Alex mentioned, if you mill it, you can pick it up to cast the Hero's Downfall. But also, like, when your library is small and these things are like being put back under your library, Tameo can find them again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can call shot. Yeah, it's super interesting. There's lots going on. With like,
It's a night too, so you're playing it at nights.
Yep. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. All right, number 5.
So number 5 is a large lad.
Hey, hungry.
Yeah. This is the Feasting Troll King. This guy costs, what would that be, 6?
Yep.
2 generic and 4 green, which is a very pricey cost. But for that cost, you get a Troll Noble. It's a 7/6. It's got Vigilance and Trample, which is exactly what you need on a 7/6. When it enters the battlefield, if you cast it from your hand, you create 3 food tokens, which plays well with its second ability, which is you may sacrifice 3 foods and return Feasting Troll King from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate this ability only during your turn.
Dude, this card is nuts.
You know what it pairs well with? Golden Egg.
Yeah. This, like, casting this card for free, if you mill it over, like you're playing some kind of graveyard-centric, your whole plan is to make foods and bring this back, seems reasonable. I think you can actually do it like a decent amount of the time, like turn 4, play a free 7/6. But casting this card for 6 mana, it's totally fine. You have 3 foods, a built-in reanimation, and it's a 7/6 Vigilance Trampler. It's huge.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think this, like, I haven't seen many people talk about this card when it was spoiled, and I actually think it's going to see a ton of play because it's just really deceptively powerful.
It's definitely going to punk some people out of games early where, like, things line up and you have them to bring it back on turn 3 or 4. But I think the real power of it is that it's just, once it's out, it's going to be in the game for the rest of the game. Like, it's going to demand so many removal spells. And, like, do we have a good exile effect in Standard that can stop this?
Plays well with the Gilded Goose, too. Another Dead Ringer.
Yeah. Yeah, Goose, very good. But, like, all the good exile effects rotate, right? I guess there's Conclave Tribunal.
Yeah. I think that the fact that it self-enables its reanimation is, like, just wild. Yeah. The only critique I have about, well, not critique, the concern I have about this card seeing Standard play is if 4 green is too prohibitive a cost. That's the only thing. If just the way decks line up, you know, or it's too slow. It's one or the other, because 6 mana. So, you know what I mean? That's the only thing stopping it.
For sure. Yeah, you're dealing with this card is going to be such a pain in the ass. You know, you deal with the first one, it comes back for free. If your opponent ever draws a second, you're just bringing back the one that's already in your graveyard automatically if you cast it. Like, it's just gonna, I feel like it's gonna snowball real fast, and any deck that's, you know, actively trying to just create food and gain value is gonna just run away with games with this card.
Yeah. If like those kind of decks end up, you know what I mean? Like, it's so hard to say.
All right, number 4.
This card's pretty good. Yeah, Once Upon a Time. Oh, here we go. If this spell is the first spell you've cast this game, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. Normally it costs a green and a colorless, and it's an instant. And it's look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature or land card from among them and put it in your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. I mean, the obvious consideration here is Tron and Modern, but...
Yeah, I think there's a lot of considerations in multiple decks in Modern.
But in Standard, I think even it's theoretically quite powerful and quite interesting for certain reasons in Standard. And we can maybe talk about Modern another time for it.
Yeah.
But in Standard, it's actually quite interesting because of cards like Field of the Dead, in that it finds either Field of the Dead or Golos. It lets you shape your hand after a mulligan. Perhaps you could cast 2 spells on your first turn because of it. That helps you shape your hand and safely get back into the game. Card does a lot.
Yeah, I mean, like 0 mana instant. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. Reveal a creature or land put in your hand. Is that just not one of the most powerful Magic cards ever printed?
It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's up there.
It's up there for sure. Yeah.
So like, I realize it's only that if it's, you know, the first spell you've cast, but like that effect alone, having that upside as a first spell, like that card just skyrockets for me.
Yeah, there is a chance that that effect just turns out to be so powerful that this is the only card in Standard that matters. Do you know what I mean? Because this finds Murderous Rider, which finds you a Hero's Downfall. This breaks, you know what I mean? We're breaking the rules already in the Standard of what it's able to find. That's insane, you know?
I'm also just thinking about, like, historically, decks that play cards like Llanowar Elf are so much stronger when they have a turn 1 Llanowar Elf. And so if you're maybe a Golden Goose deck looking for that mana dork, the fact that this will just make it that much more consistent that you have a Golden Goose on turn 1.
Yeah, I mean, even late game, this just finding your Hero's Downfall.
Yeah, that too.
If you're just playing black-green, you know, what if black-green is just the best deck, right? Like just black-green value food mid-range, you know?
Yeah, Savvy Hunter coming in hot.
Oh, yeah, here we go. Cam was right. Ah, brother.
What are you going to make your food out of? You need a hunter.
Yeah, I think it's going to see a ton of play in Standard, and it's definitely going to be played in Modern. It's a super powerful card. And
I wonder if it sees Legacy play just because it's free. Nah, you can't cast it on the backside. You can't waste the turn casting this on the backside in Legacy. You know what I mean? 2 mana to potentially whiff. Ugh.
Yikes.
Ugh. Never mind.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe some dumb deck like Elves plays it, but
This card's there's also going to be games that are just, well, scenarios in games that this card's just like super fun. You keep that like sketchy hand where like you have 1 land and you're missing a color, but you got it once upon a time.
Yeah. I mean,
let me tell you a story about how lucky I got. Once upon a time, I kept this 1 lander and I crumpled him.
Yeah, I mean, with the London Mull too, you're gonna have this card more often in your opening 7s, and it's gonna just save your mulligans. And
Yeah.
So theoretical question about this card. I've seen a couple early lists. There were some streamer events where they had access to Throne of Eldraine, I think a couple days ago. And there was a list that was only playing 2 of these. Now, my initial reaction is that this is a card you either play 0 copies of or 4 copies of because it's so much stronger in your opener. Do you guys agree with that? Because like the fact that they were only playing 2 seemed really strange to me.
Yeah, that seems bizarre.
yeah, I feel like it's an effect you'd want to max out on, but
Because like if you're playing 4, then it is, I mean, you're maximizing the chance that you get a free copy. In my mind, if you're playing 2, it's never going to be free.
Yeah, and also if it's not free, is it that good?
It's
I
fine.
think it's totally acceptable.
It's okay.
It's acceptable because of the ability for the first one to be free. But I think if it didn't have that
No,
text,
but I'm saying if it's never free.
I don't think you can play it.
If it's never free, then yeah, it's a lot less exciting.
I don't even know if you can play it.
Yeah, I don't
it's
think
never
it's-
free.
Yeah.
I don't think it's playable. It would, however, be the best card ever if it put the cards in your graveyard instead of the bottom of your library.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it'd be straight busted in half. Are you kidding me?
Can you imagine?
Oh my god!
It would actually be the best card ever printed. One simple change in this rules text, maybe the best card ever
Yeah,
printed.
they've learned. There's very, very little cards that dump things into your graveyard.
Cast
you
it,
imagine
cast this for free on turn
My
1.
dredge deck.
Play my land, bring back my Bloodcast, fetch,
Oh, you're thinking small here.
cast a grave color,
I'm
cast
thinking,
Kogak.
Vintage and legacy, where it's just like, I don't know, dump my entire deck, like flare you on turn 1, like turn 0 kill you, like
Yeah, well, let's not get too
Yeah,
crazy.
because
But
you just Bazaar Baghdad. Oh, I found my Bazaar Baghdad. You know. yeah. Anyway, we can move on. The card's very interesting.
Is the like first copy being free good enough to find Bazaar? Does that deck like is that enough for them?
Oh, that's actually interesting. In Vintage Dredge, they might actually end up playing this because they mull to Bazaar.
Right.
Like you just have to mull to Bazaar. But I don't know if you have room.
Okay.
yeah, I feel like with London Mull, you find Bazaar a lot more often anyway. So
Yeah.
you're probably fine.
Yeah, you might not need this.
Mhm.
And it's also like, would you keep a hand with this and no Bazaar and hope it's in the top 5, or is it better to just take another 7 with London Mull?
Yeah.
So it's taking 7
Pre-London
better.
Mull, you probably play maybe. No, you don't have room though. You don't
That's
have room. Yeah. So
Anyway, moving up to number 3. Now this card was spoiled when Cam and I were doing our stream the other week, and we both read it and were kind of.
I misread it at first.
Yeah, but this is Fires of Invention. It's 3 generic and 1 red for an enchantment. You can cast spells only during your turn, and you can cast no more than 2 spells each turn. You may cast spells with converted mana costs less than or equal to the number of lands you control without paying their mana costs. So Cam likes to joke a lot on this cast about banning mana mechanics.
They're not jokes.
I think this card might be potentially one of the secretly most busted cards in the set. Casting cards for free is no joke. And there are tons of other things you can find to do with your manas, like all of the busted castles in this format. There's permanents you can play that have powerful mana sinks on them. And dude, if you're casting 2 spells a turn, that's already what you want to be doing in Standard. That's how you win Standard games, casting 2 spells a turn. You just get to cast. You can cast 2 5-drops in a turn with 5 lands in play.
Hear me out.
play this card.
You can cast more than that, actually.
All right.
So we play this on turn 4, and we cast double Circuitous Route.
Well, yeah,
This counts as one.
it
spell.
Oh, this
as
counts
the
one.
first
Okay,
one.
we cast Circus Route.
Yeah.
Then we play Golos.
Yeah.
Now we have 7 lands.
Ooh, we get to keep activating
And-
Golos.
And then we activate Golos. And we decide which we want to play. And if they all suck, we just play the Agent of Treachery in our hand for free. Because we have 7 lands.
So
Yeah.
I've heard of people using this where they will have a Fires of Invention, cast whatever, like a 5-drop for free, cast a Teferi for 3, pick this up, and then spend their mana on something else.
Oh, that's actually
Yeah.
busted.
Cool. I'm listening. Also, like, just imagine on turn 4 casting this and then playing Drawn from Dreams for free. Is
Okay.
that just like
That's very good.
that
Yeah, it's nuts.
makes me shake.
Yeah, I think the Circuitous Route thing's also insane
Yeah.
just because you now just have more lands. So you can just start playing your
Bigger things for
big
free.
things
yeah.
for free. Like,
Yeah.
there's just this card is really generative in its potential. Like it has a lot of potential to do really insane things. It's super
Yeah.
well designed.
I think when I first read it and I saw you can't cast more than 2 spells each turn and only on your turn, I was turned off it. But the more I thought about it, you can't cast spells on your opponent's turn anyway because it's Teferi. So why do you need to do that? Also, all you need to do is cast 2 spells a turn in Standard to win. It's very easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I first sort of understood what this card did, I thought it was weaker than Wilderness Reclamation. I thought it was a fixed version of that because Reclamations stack. They sort of give you more mana to work with, sort of in a more flexible way, but they limit you to using that mana on instance. And you still have to use your lands. So, like, you can't be activating castles while you're casting things with Wilderness Reclamation. And then I realized that Fires of Invention plays well with, sorcery speed things, creatures, planeswalkers, where Wilderness Reclamation doesn't. And that opens up a ton of power. So
Yeah,
I'm
and
curious
it's like
what
just
this will
it
do.
fixes your mana too. We can just play Niv Mizzet if we
Just
want.
like Scape Shift.
Yeah. Escape. Like, we can play 5 mana Niv Mizzet, draw 7 cards, cast another card for free, and then just pop off. If that's not already popping off. We're already popping off. Like,
You just proceed to continue popping off.
yeah. Like,
Just wait till my big brother next turn shows up. I can cast 2 more spells.
yeah. And I mean, it's essentially free because you gain all the mana back immediately because you get to cast something right away.
Mm-hmm.
And, Wilderness Reclamation has the same effect, right? You get to cast something at instant speed right away after you cast it, so it feels free. I think a bunch of people are going to be messing around with this, and I think it's probably busted.
Yeah, there's a lot to play with for sure.
Dude, free spell, things that allow you to do stuff for free are always busted. And this is not an exception to the rule. This card's going to be busted.
Ban mana mechanics.
Like the last thing, so like the art on this is a dwarf working at a forge making something that's gold. And the last time I saw a dwarf work at a forge and make something that was gold, it made the Infinity Gauntlet, and we saw how that went. So this is just obviously powerful.
Gotta make it stop.
Yeah, I'm going to have to do a gather search for, the permanent with the best mana sync abilities on them and see where we go with this card because
Villas.
yeah.
No.
Because like even something like the it's a brawl card. What is it? It's the fairy formation. 5 mana, 5/4 flyer, and it has the 4 mana create a 1/1 fairy token draw card. Like even that's probably like insanely good with flyers, right? It's a totally reasonable mana sink on a free 5/4 flyer is really good too.
Yeah, that's really
Like,
interesting actually, and it lets you keep going.
Yeah.
Just play Spectral Sailor.
That also, yeah, sure.
Any mana sink you play off it, you just get to go nuts. Yeah.
Give me anything that'll draw me cards. I'm listening. All right. Number 2.
So this is Emry, Lurker of the Loch. It's 3 mana, 2 generic, and a blue. It's a legendary creature, Merfolk Wizard. It's a 1/2. It costs 1 less to cast for each artifact you control. And when Emry, Lurker of the Loch, enters the battlefield, put the top 4 cards of your library into your graveyard. And then you can tap her and choose target artifact card in your graveyard, and you may cast that card this turn.
Man, ban mana mechanics.
Yeah, so like it's 3 CMC, but for some reason needs to be cost reduced. So you're clearly, because it like lets you flashback artifacts, you're going to be playing this in a deck with artifacts on the battlefield, probably golden eggs.
Yeah.
So you have a 1 mana 1/2 that essentially draws you cards that are in your graveyard.
And enables those graveyard strategies by milling yourself.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't even matter if you mill over your artifact payoffs. You can just cast them. This card, 100% modern playable, probably playable in Urza. Does a lot. And it's gonna be everywhere. And I think it's one of those cards that kind of like Risen Reef, how, at the start people kind of would let it stay in play and then it would just start snowballing and eventually people realize that card just has to die on spot. I think that's going to happen with this card too. At the start people will be like, okay, we'll see what happens. And then it's going to start snowballing and people are like, okay, now we'll figure out eventually. This has to just die immediately every time my opponent casts it.
Yeah, and this, like, the power level is high on this for just its text as it is, but if people find some way to sacrifice artifacts or somehow loop artifacts off the battlefield.
Dude, Witch's Oven.
Witch's Oven, sure.
Golden egg.
No, actually, we can sack our golden egg to our Savvy Hunter to draw a card and then bring it back with Emry.
Or,
and draw another card.
3-card combo, you say.
Or
I'm listening.
We just recast our Witch's Oven, sack something, make foods, sack those foods, bring back my 7/6 Vigilance Trampler. Easy.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Let's keep going. Tap this next turn, bring back my golden egg.
That's why he's the Feasting Troll King. It's because this lady gave him a sword.
Yeah, that's how it works. Yeah. Someone in the water lobbed a sword at you, and now you're king.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd follow him.
We're an anarcho collective. That's not how we roll.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of great like references to that movie here. Did you see the Black Knight reference? It's like a 3 mana 0/0 enters with 4 +1/+1 counters. And if it takes damage, you prevent the damage and remove a counter.
Yeah. There's some really good ones. Yeah. But yeah, and like I alluded to Emry earlier when we were talking about the legendary artifact cycle. With the Cauldron, this card mills over your payoff reanimation spell, but allows you to cast it from the graveyard later. This card just does a lot. It's gonna see a bunch of play. It's super powerful. That brings us to number 1.
Oh, yeah. Let's get it. This dumb card. Oko, Thief of Crowns. A good old 3-mana Planeswalker. 1 green, 1 blue, 1 colorless. It starts at 4 loyalty.
That's a lot.
Yeah. I'm not really happy about this one. +2, create a food token. +2, create a food token. Goes to 6.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot of loyalty. +1, target artifact or creature loses all abilities and becomes a green elk. With base power and toughness 3/3, and -5, exchange control of target artifact or creature you control, and target creature an opponent controls power 3 or less. So I don't think the alt actually matters that much, although it may end up mattering a lot in the Emry mirrors if this is the case. But I think the fact that if you're on the play and this comes down against aggro decks, I think the game's over. I think the game ends.
Yeah.
Like actually.
I think you're right.
I think they can't spend that much time attacking this while you just develop your board and trying to kill it while you're also producing food, which are going to be resources sitting around. I think this card is a really, 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 really powerful. And then, it's a build around still. It's going to take some work. I don't know for sure that it's actually busted in standard. It's impossible to say. That's like the caveat on every card we've talked about because you never know how metagames are going to line up. But this card, ruins my midnight clock fun. It ruins tons of artifact shenanigans. It's good against the entire Great Henge cycle we talked about. It's a 3-mana counter to all these things. That's ridiculous to me. I hate this card, but it's incredibly busted.
I feel like whoever figures out the best shell early for an Oko and Teferi deck is gonna be just making bank and just stealing wins.
Yeah, absolutely.
This card's gonna be incredibly awkward to play against. There's gonna be just like weird play patterns where like you can't really cast a creature into it early because it's just immediately gonna steal that creature and just give you a food. And then it just like protects itself more in that way. And it just has such an absurd amount of loyalty when it comes down. It enables your Troll Kings. Plays super well with a card like Emery. It plays really well with a lot of the cards we've talked about already on this list.
You can also use it sort of in more creative ways with like Deputy of Detention style effects.
Yeah.
Like because you can Deputy of Detention away people's threats. And then if you +1 your Oko on your Deputy of Detention, you've given it 2 extra power, and now nothing happens if it dies.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. We're playing Glass Casket as well. We can turn our Glass Caskets into 3/3s, do the same thing.
So they never get their stuff back.
Play Deputy. We're playing Teferi. We can just pick back up our thing and do it again the next turn with our Teferis. I'm telling you, this shell is busted.
And it's like
someone's got to figure it out.
It's a very good incidental answer to sort of like big static ability-esque creatures. Like this card might single-handedly keep Niv Mizzet out of the format, the 6-mana Niv Mizzet, or things like in standard 2020 events on Arena, Yarok decks have been popular. You tap out on 5 for a Yarok, they just make it a 3/3 that doesn't do anything.
That card is obnoxious.
Yeah. It might even be worth it to turn Risen Reefs into 3/3s.
Dude, like, yeah, how do you ever justify playing big threats in your deck anymore if this card is popular in the format? It's like, what are you going to do? You're telling me I'm going to cast my Doom Whisperer on turn 5, and then my opponent's going to turn it into a 3/3, and
you're going to bring back a Troll King, and I'm going to make it a 3/3.
Damn it. Like, it's going to be so awkward. Like, it just like comes down early, is almost impossible to get off the board. You know, this is why we need Murderous Rider, because like how else do you ever beat this card?
This card is a huge problem. Like, also, if they 3/3 your Murderous Rider, does it not shuffle back, right?
It doesn't. It just hits the graveyard.
Or if you do it to your own.
Yeah, you're right.
Goes to your graveyard.
Sure does.
And then you can pick it up with Tameo.
Yeah.
Yes, you could.
Huh. That sounds like a pretty good.
This card is so bizarre. I hate it. I don't actually hate it. I don't like 3-mana Planeswalkers, but it is super powerful and super interesting.
I didn't pre-order many cards from this set, but you best believe I pre-ordered 4 of this card because, my God.
It's so weird.
I don't know. I don't understand where the let's keep printing these busted 3-mana Planeswalkers, and then everyone just whines and complains because how busted they are, and we're just, you know what, let's just keep doing it.
Yep.
What's the strangest thing we could do with this -5? We could give our opponents a Rotting Regisaur so they have to discard cards.
The weirdest thing?
Yeah.
Like,
because we can give them anything. We can only take creatures power 3 or less.
Yeah, let's just give them that crappy food we made on the +2.
No, but that's a normal thing to do.
What's something?
Like giving your opponent a Rotting Regisaur is pretty dumb, but they have to discard cards. So like, is it dumb?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. What was the name of that card that like exchanged control to your opponent?
Harmless Offering?
Yeah.
But
when
there was that Cat Pact.
Yeah. And you trade over. There's no creatures that do that, right?
I don't think so.
They have a downside where you lose the game. Currently in Standard.
Not that I know of.
I don't think they would do that.
No.
Not with this, no.
Because that would be the weirdest thing you could do.
Yeah. Well, that would even be obvious.
Yeah. I'm not sure. But that wraps up our top 10.
Been a wild ride on this one, actually.
Yeah.
I'm sure I missed a couple other dead ringers. You're going to have to let me know it in the comments section.
Yeah, we didn't really make a honorable mentions list, but
there's just so many possible things we could have talked about. I mean, I'm sure we missed a ton. Let us know in the comments if you're insulted we missed a particular cool brew card or some neat you could be doing. We're happy to hear it because we're going to start brewing up some decks here and playing a lot more. So do let us know in the comments.
Yeah. Notably, next weekend is GP Montreal.
Yeah, we're going to be going. Oh, Realm Cloak Giant, Dead Ringer.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that thing's just big.
Yeah. We talked about how nuts that card was on the pre-show.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
didn't put it on the list.
So yeah, if you're at GP Montreal, come say hi. We'll be hanging out. There's a whole squad of us coming up from previous guests on the show. There's a bunch of people. We're all going up to GP Montreal to hang out. So please do come hang out with us. If you're there, come say hi.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun time. Can't wait. That's it.
Yeah.
All good. Well, thank you all for joining the club this week. Make sure, as always, you check out wizardtower.com for all your Magic single needs. If you want to support the show, you can find us on Patreon, patreon.com/DWC Podcast. We're over on Twitter at DWC Podcast 1 and Facebook, the Disorganized Wizard Club Podcast. And however you listen to the show, whether it's Podbean, iTunes, any podcast app, or Spotify, leave a review, rate the podcast, share it with your friends. Everything helps bring this thing to new listeners. Thank you for listening.
Take care.
Catch you next week.
And they all lived happily ever after. Hopefully.